Los Angeles, California. The Warner Brothers studio lot, June 1972. Friday evening, just past 7 p.m. The wrap party for Way of the Dragon is in full swing. Studio executives mingle with actors, martial artists, and Hollywood's elite. The room buzzes with congratulations. Bruce Lee's directorial debut is complete, and everyone who's seen the rough cut knows they've witnessed something special. But the real story isn't happening in the main party room. It's happening in the private rehearsal space adjacent to Stage 9, where a handful of people have gathered for something far more interesting than champagne and small talk. Chuck Norris stands near the mirrors, rolling his shoulders, loosening his neck. He's 32 years old, 5'10", 175 pounds of perfectly conditioned muscle, 6-time world middleweight karate champion, professional tournament fighter, a man who has never lost a competitive match. Not once, not ever. His reputation isn't built on movie fights or choreographed demonstrations. It's built on real competition, on facing the best fighters in the world under tournament rules and defeating them systematically, technically, completely. He's wearing his training uniform, white GI pants, bare chest showing the kind of physique that comes from a decade of disciplined training. His arms are defined but not bulky, his core tight, his legs thick with the kind of power that comes from 10,000 kicks practiced to perfection. Chuck Norris is not in Los Angeles by accident. He's here because Bruce Lee specifically requested him for the climactic fight scene in Way of the Dragon. Bruce wanted someone real, someone who could move, someone whose martial arts credentials were beyond question, someone who would make the final battle look authentic because it would be authentic. They've spent 3 weeks choreographing the Coliseum fight. 3 weeks of Bruce showing Chuck his vision, Chuck adapting his tournament style to work on camera, both men pushing each other to create something cinema has never seen before. But tonight, something is different. Tonight, the movie is done. The choreography is over. And someone has made a comment that cannot be ignored. Bob Wall is here. Professional karate champion, Bruce's friend, Chuck's occasional training partner. He's been drinking just enough to be honest. He leans against the rehearsal room wall, watching Chuck warm up, and he says something that changes the temperature of the entire evening. "You know, Chuck," Bob says casually, "everyone's been wondering. All those movie fights with Bruce, all that choreography where you're supposed to lose. What would happen if you two actually went at it? No choreography, no camera angles, just pure skill." The room goes quiet. Not immediately, but like a wave spreading outward from Bob's words. Conversations pause, heads turn, everyone processes what was just said. Chuck stops his warm-up. He looks at Bob with an expression that's hard to read. Not angry, not offended, just considering. "That's a hell of a question," Chuck says slowly. "It's the question everyone has," Bob continues, emboldened by the attention. "You're the tournament champion, undefeated in competition. Bruce is Bruce. Different style, different approach, but nobody really knows." Bruce Lee has been on the other side of the room, talking quietly with a cinematographer about upcoming projects. He heard Bob's comment. Everyone can tell he heard it because of what happens next. Nothing. Bruce doesn't turn around, doesn't acknowledge the comment, doesn't change his expression or his tone. He simply continues his conversation as if Bob Wall hadn't just proposed the most interesting martial arts question of the decade. But Chuck notices something. Bruce's shoulders have shifted slightly. His weight has redistributed in a way that's almost imperceptible. The cinematographer notices it too and quietly excuses himself, sensing that the conversation is over. Bruce turns slowly. He looks at Bob Wall first, then at Chuck Norris. His expression reveals absolutely nothing. No anger, no amusement, no challenge. Just that characteristic Bruce Lee stillness that people who know him have learned to respect and fear in equal measure. "Bob," Bruce says quietly, "has had too much champagne." The room relaxes slightly, crisis averted. But then Chuck speaks. He's not wrong, though. Everyone tenses again. Chuck isn't being confrontational. His tone is respectful, curious. He's simply stating a fact. The question exists. The question is legitimate. And now that it's been asked out loud in front of witnesses, it cannot be unasked. Bruce walks slowly across the rehearsal room. Each step is measured, deliberate. He stops about 6 feet from Chuck. The size difference is noticeable but not dramatic. Chuck has maybe 2 inches and 35 pounds on Bruce. In tournament karate, that weight difference would matter. Different weight classes exist for a reason. "You want to know," Bruce says. Not a question, a statement. Chuck nods slowly. "I think everyone in this room wants to know, including us." Bruce looks around at the gathered witnesses. Maybe 15 people total. Martial artists, stunt coordinators, a few actors, Bob Wall. All of them are watching with the kind of attention usually reserved for something historic. "No rules?" Bruce asks. "Whatever you're comfortable with," Chuck responds. "This isn't about ego. It's about understanding. We've spent 3 weeks making movie magic. Maybe it's time to see what's real." Something shifts in Bruce's expression. Not a smile exactly, but something close to approval. Chuck has approached this correctly, not as a challenge to Bruce's reputation, but as a mutual exploration between professionals. 6 seconds, Bruce says. Chuck's eyebrows raise slightly. 6 seconds? Yes, we go for 6 seconds. Full contact, no restrictions, no holding back. 6 seconds will tell us everything we need to know. The specificity of it is strange. Not a full sparring session, not multiple rounds. Just 6 seconds. It sounds almost absurd. What can happen in 6 seconds? Bob Wall speaks up again. "Bruce, man, 6 seconds isn't enough time to—" "6 seconds," Bruce repeats, cutting him off. His eyes never leave Chuck. "You said don't hold back. I'm agreeing. But 6 seconds is enough. Trust me." Chuck considers this for a moment. Then he nods. "Okay. 6 seconds." The room rearranges itself. People move to the walls, creating space. Someone kills the music that had been playing softly from the party room. The atmosphere becomes electric, charged with anticipation. Chuck moves to the center of the cleared space. He settles into his tournament stance. It's textbook perfect. Weight distributed 60-40. Front leg light for checking kicks. Back leg loaded for power. Hands up, guard tight. This is the stance that has won 6 world championships. Bruce doesn't take a stance. He simply stands, weight neutral, hands relaxed at his sides. To anyone who doesn't know martial arts, he looks completely unprepared. To the martial artists in the room, he looks terrifying. That level of relaxation suggests absolute confidence. "Someone count," Chuck says. One of the stunt coordinators raises his hand. "I'll count. On 3. 1, 2, 3. What happens in the next 6 seconds will be debated, analyzed, and discussed for decades. Everyone present sees it. But like all moments of extreme speed and violence, perception fractures. Different people remember different details. The human brain struggles to process what happens when 2 masters operate at the absolute peak of human capability. Chuck Norris moves first. It's a feint, a quick jab designed to test distance and reaction time. Tournament fighter's technique. Safe, smart, professional. The jab hits nothing. Bruce has slipped offline, angled maybe 30 degrees to his right. Not a dramatic movement, just enough to make Chuck's fist pass through empty air. Chuck adjusts immediately. He throws a low roundhouse kick, the kind that has won him dozens of matches. Fast, powerful, aimed at Bruce's lead leg. It's a technique Chuck has perfected over thousands of hours. The kick that makes opponents hesitate, that sets up everything else. Bruce's leg moves. It doesn't block the kick. It intercepts it. His shin meets Chuck's shin mid-arc with a sharp crack that makes everyone in the room wince. But Bruce's shin doesn't move backward. It moves forward through Chuck's kick, disrupting the trajectory. 2 seconds have passed. Chuck resets quickly. He's a champion because he can adapt. He throws a combination: jab, cross, roundhouse. 3 techniques in rapid succession. This is tournament-winning offense. This is what has made him undefeated. The jab misses. Bruce has shifted again. Minimal movement. Maximum effect. The cross comes next, and this time, Bruce doesn't evade. He intercepts it. His hand meets Chuck's wrist, not grabbing, just touching, and Chuck's powerful cross punch loses all its structure. It deflects harmlessly to the side. 4 seconds. The roundhouse kick comes high, aimed at Bruce's head. It's fast. Chuck Norris kicks are legendary for their speed. But halfway through the arc, something happens that nobody can quite process in real time. Bruce's foot comes up. Not a kick exactly. More like his leg simply appears in the space where Chuck's kicking leg is traveling. The impact happens shin to shin again, but this time at full speed, full force. The sound is louder, sharper. Several people in the room gasp. Chuck's kick stops completely. His leg, which was moving with championship-level speed and power, just stops. The kinetic energy has to go somewhere, and it goes backward through Chuck's structure. His supporting leg wobbles. His balance wavers for just a fraction of a second. 5 seconds. And this is when Bruce attacks. It's not a combination. It's not multiple techniques. It's a single strike. Bruce's right hand, which had been relaxed at his side the entire time, moves. The witnesses will argue about what they saw. Some will say it was a straight punch. Others will say it looked more like a palm strike. A few will insist it was something else entirely, something from Wing Chun or Jeet Kune Do that doesn't have a tournament equivalent. What everyone agrees on is the speed. Bruce's hand goes from his side to Chuck Norris's chest without seeming to travel the distance in between. It simply appears there. One moment it's down, the next moment it's making contact. The impact point is precise, not the sternum, not the ribs, but the solar plexus. The nexus of nerves that controls breathing, that connects to everything vital. Chuck Norris, 6-time world middleweight karate champion, undefeated in professional competition, stumbles backward 3 full steps. His hands drop to his midsection. His mouth opens wide. He's trying to breathe and can't. 6 seconds. Time! The stunt coordinator calls out. The room is absolutely silent. Nobody moves. Nobody speaks. They're all processing what they just witnessed. Chuck is bent slightly forward, hands still on his abdomen, pulling in ragged breaths. His face shows shock. Not pain exactly, though there is pain, but profound shock. The kind of shock that comes from having your fundamental understanding of something challenged. Bruce has stepped back. His hands are at his sides again. His breathing is completely normal. He looks like he just finished a casual walk, not 6 seconds of combat with one of the most decorated martial artists in the world. Bob Wall is staring, mouth slightly open. The cinematographer has his hand over his mouth. The stunt coordinators are exchanging glances that communicate volumes. Chuck straightens up slowly. His breathing is returning to normal, but his hand stays pressed against his chest where Bruce struck him. He's testing something, feeling something, trying to understand something. He looks at Bruce with an expression of complete bewilderment. What? Chuck starts, then stops. Swallows. Tries again. What was that? That, Bruce says quietly, was 6 seconds. But how? Chuck shakes his head. I've fought hundreds of matches. I've sparred with the best fighters in the world. That strike? That wasn't... I didn't even see it start. Bruce walks closer. There's no triumph in his expression, no ego, just that teacher's patience that people who've trained with him recognize immediately. You telegraphed everything, Bruce says, not unkindly. Your jab came from your shoulder, your cross loaded from your hip, your kick chambered before release. In tournament fighting, these tells don't matter because everyone uses them. But in a real engagement, against someone trained to read them, They're like announcing your intentions. Chuck is listening intently, the student now, despite being a world champion. And when I struck you, Bruce continues, I didn't load the technique. I didn't pull back. I didn't signal intention. The power came from the connection of my entire body in that single moment. Not from distance, not from wind-up, from structure. That's not how tournament fighting works, Chuck says, and there's no defensiveness in his voice. Just observation. No, Bruce agrees. Tournament fighting has rules, safety measures, targets that are allowed and targets that aren't. It's a game, Chuck. A sophisticated game played by incredible athletes. But it's still a game. Bruce places his hand on Chuck's shoulder. The gesture is respectful, almost brotherly. What you do in competition is extraordinary. Your discipline, your technique, your achievement, nobody can question it. But you've been conditioned by rules. Your body has learned to fight within a specific framework. My approach has no framework, no style, only what works in the moment against whatever I'm facing. Chuck nods slowly. He's still rubbing his chest, still feeling the impact. That strike, it didn't feel like being hit. It felt like something inside me just stopped working. The solar plexus, Bruce explains. Not just a soft target, a neurological nexus. Strike it correctly and you don't just cause pain. You interrupt the communication between brain and body. The nervous system shorts out temporarily. That's why you couldn't breathe. Not because your lungs were damaged, but because the signals telling your diaphragm to work were disrupted. One of the martial artists in the crowd speaks up. But Bruce, Chuck is tough. He's taken full power strikes in competition. How is this different? Because competition strikes are designed to score points, not to disrupt structure, Bruce responds, turning to address the room now. Tournament fighters pull their techniques, they have to. The rules require it. But pulling a technique means you're training your body to stop short, to never fully commit. What I showed Chuck was commitment without telegraph, full power from zero distance. Bob Wall, who started this entire thing, finally speaks. So in 6 seconds you proved that street fighting beats sport fighting? No, Bruce says firmly. I proved that different training produces different results. Chuck could train for 6 months to read the tells he gives off and eliminate them. He could learn to strike without loading. He has the discipline, the physical tools, the understanding. Tournament fighting taught him excellence within its parameters. But those parameters can be expanded. Chuck has recovered now. He's standing fully upright, breathing normally, but something fundamental has changed in how he's looking at Bruce. There's a new level of respect there, mixed with genuine curiosity. Teach me, Chuck says simply. Bruce smiles. The first real smile since this whole situation began. That's why we're friends, Chuck. You can accept a lesson without letting ego get in the way. That's rarer than you think, especially among champions. After what just happened, my ego isn't much of a factor anymore. Chuck laughs, though there's still a slight grimace as he touches his chest again. How long will this feeling last? Tomorrow, you'll wake up with a deep ache in your core, not surface pain. Deep tissue, neurological. It'll last 3, maybe 4 days. Nothing permanent. Just your nervous system recalibrating. The stunt coordinator who did the counting speaks up. I've been in this business 15 years. I've seen every kind of movie fight, every kind of demonstration. I've never seen anything move that fast. Camera doesn't capture it correctly, Bruce says. That's always been the problem. Real speed looks wrong on film. We have to slow techniques down for the camera to register them. But what you saw tonight, that's real speed. That's what combat actually looks like when both people are operating at the highest level. One of the other martial artists in the room, a Korean master who's been silent until now, asks a question in careful English. Mr. Lee, I have trained 40 years. I have never seen strike like this. Is this Wing Chun? Is this your Jeet Kune Do? It's both and neither, Bruce responds. Wing Chun gave me the understanding of centerline theory and economy of motion. But Jeet Kune Do is about letting go of classical forms entirely. That strike worked because I wasn't trying to perform a Wing Chun technique or demonstrate a style. I simply saw the opening and filled it with force. No art, no style. Just efficient application of power to a specific target. Chuck has been listening to all of this while continuing to process his own experience. Finally, he says, "You know what the crazy thing is? I'm one of the best tournament fighters in the world. I've beaten everyone I've faced. But in 6 seconds, you showed me I don't understand fighting at all. Not really. I understand competition. I understand rules. But actual combat? That's something else entirely." "You understand more than you think," Bruce counters. "Your base is excellent. Your conditioning is outstanding. Your discipline is unquestionable. Those things don't change just because you learned that tournament rules create blind spots. Now you can address those blind spots. That's growth." Bob Wall, clearly feeling some responsibility for starting this whole situation, steps forward. "Chuck, man, I didn't mean to—" Bruce laughs. "Not even remotely. If Chuck and I fought for real, the way we just did, the audience wouldn't believe it. They'd think it was sped up. They'd think it was trick photography. So we had to create something that looks impressive but is still believable. Movie fighting and real fighting are completely different arts." "The audience is going to love that fight, though," Chuck says. "Even if it's slowed down for the camera, even if it's choreographed, we put real technique in there. Real power. People will feel it." "They will," Bruce agrees. "Because we built it on truth, then adjusted it for cinema. That's different from pure choreography. You can fake a lot of things, but you can't fake genuine skill. The camera picks up authenticity even when the techniques are modified for visual effect." The private rehearsal space begins to empty. People drift back toward the party, though their conversations now revolve entirely around what they just witnessed. The martial artists are already beginning the process of analysis, debate, reconstruction. Only Bruce, Chuck, and Bob Wall remain. Chuck sits down on one of the rehearsal benches, still occasionally pressing his hand to his solar plexus. "I'm going to be feeling this for days, aren't I?" "Yes," Bruce confirms. "But consider it an investment. Your body just learned something at the cellular level. Next time you face someone, your nervous system will remember this. It'll make you slightly more cautious, slightly more aware. That awareness could save you in a real situation." "Have you done that to many people?" Chuck asks. "That specific strike?" Bruce considers the question carefully. "A few. Usually only in situations where someone needed to understand that their confidence was built on limited experience. You're different, though. You weren't being arrogant. You genuinely wanted to know. That makes this a teaching moment instead of a humbling moment." "It was both," Chuck laughs, then winces slightly. "Definitely both." Bob Wall speaks up, clearly still processing his role in all this. "Bruce, I'm sorry if I put you in an awkward position. I had a few drinks and my mouth got ahead of my judgment." "Bob," Bruce says, turning to him, "you did exactly what needed to happen. Chuck and I have been working together for weeks, building respect, building friendship, but there was always this question underneath everything. Tournament champion versus whatever I am. The question needed to be answered. Now it's answered. Now we can move forward without that ambiguity." "And what is the answer?" Bob asks. "For those of us who'll be asked about this later?" Bruce and Chuck exchange a look. Some unspoken communication passes between them. Finally, Chuck speaks. "The answer is that Bruce Lee operates on a different level. Not better or worse, but different. Tournament fighting is an art. What Bruce does is something else. Something I'm going to spend the rest of my life trying to understand." "And the answer," Bruce adds, "is that Chuck Norris is one of the finest martial artists I've ever worked with. His skills are real. His achievements are legitimate. What happened tonight doesn't diminish them. It just shows that there are different ways to approach combat, and different training produces different results. Bob nods, accepting this. So, if people ask me what I saw tonight? You saw two martial artists testing themselves, Bruce says. That's all. No winners, no losers, just exploration. But they all know that's not quite true. There was a winner and a loser in those 6 seconds, but there's also an understanding between them now that transcends victory and defeat. Chuck stands up slowly, testing his body. The pain is still there, but manageable. I'm serious about the teaching, Bruce, not just techniques. I want to understand your philosophy, why you think about combat the way you do. Come by my school in Oakland, Bruce offers. Bring whoever you want. We'll train, we'll talk, we'll explore these ideas properly. No cameras, no audience, just work. I will, Chuck promises. And thank you. This sounds strange, but thank you for not holding back. You could have faked something, could have made it look good without actually doing what you did, but you respected me enough to show me the truth. Of course, Bruce says simply. Truth is the only thing worth showing. They shake hands, not the casual handshake of acquaintances, but the firm grip of mutual respect. Then Chuck heads back toward the party, walking slightly stiffly, still processing both the physical and philosophical impact of the previous 6 seconds. Bob lingers for a moment with Bruce. That was incredible, man. Genuinely incredible. I've never seen anything move that fast. Speed is useful, Bruce acknowledges, but speed without purpose is just flashy. What made it work was the combination of speed and precision. Chuck's solar plexus was exposed for maybe 1/10 of a second. If I'd been thinking about the technique, analyzing the movement, I would have missed the window. But because I've trained to react without thinking, my body recognized the opportunity before my conscious mind registered it. Is that something that can be taught? Bob asks. Yes and no, Bruce responds. The principle can be taught. The philosophy can be explained. But the execution requires thousands of hours of training where you gradually remove conscious thought from the equation. Most people never get there because they're too attached to their style, their forms, their techniques. They want to execute technique A or technique B. They never learn to just respond. They walk slowly toward the door leading back to the party. The sounds of celebration drift through the walls. The successful completion of a film, a creative vision realized. But for the 15 people who witnessed what happened in that rehearsal room, the celebration has a different meaning now. They saw something beyond movie making. They saw the real thing. Years later, after Bruce's death, Chuck will be asked about that night in dozens of interviews. He'll always answer the same way. Bruce showed me that I'd been living in a small room thinking it was the whole house. He opened a door I didn't know existed. And what I saw on the other side changed everything I thought I knew about fighting. The 6 seconds in that Warner Brothers rehearsal room become legend. Not because of the violence or the drama, but because of what they represented. Two masters testing themselves honestly, learning from each other, and emerging with deeper respect than they had before. That's Bruce Lee's real legacy. Not the movies, not the demonstrations, not even the fighting. The legacy is the lesson, the constant reminder that mastery isn't a destination, it's a process. And sometimes 6 seconds is all it takes to understand that you've got much further to go than you ever imagined.